If you follow the MMA space, you probably have seen the drama between Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall. And one of the things that always amazes me with that discussion is how people try to be diplomatic and say that Jon Jones is not afraid of Tom. Because in my opinion, Jon Jones is terrified of Tom, and that's what I'm going to be talking about in this video. But before I get to all that, it's good to be back. It's been a few weeks for me. So if you could do me a favor and hit the like button if you enjoy the video, I would really appreciate that. And of course, I have to ask, if you're not subscribed already, please consider doing that as well. So one of the talking points that I've never really understood is the idea that a fighter can't be afraid of somebody else because they're in the fighting business. And when I see so many people talking about the Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall situation, they always preface what Jon is doing by saying that he's not afraid to fight Tom. Well, as I said, I completely disagree with that entire premise, and not only do I think many fighters are probably afraid of certain matchups, but I also don't think there's anything strange about feeling that way. In fact, Georges St-Pierre, who's widely considered to be one of the best fighters of all time, often talked about how he was afraid leading into his fights. And basically, no matter what you do as a competitive sport, if you find yourself in a position coming up against a hungry, talented prospect, you're always going to be nervous about facing that person. And then when you add the element of possibly getting hurt or taking punches or getting knocked out, it's only going to amplify that even more. And so from that standpoint, I think that Jon Jones is absolutely terrified of Tom Aspinall, and I think it has to do with the fact that he does not see a path to victory there. And frankly, I don't either. There is not a single aspect of the game where I can imagine that Jon Jones would have a significant advantage over Tom, except for maybe experience. But even there, Tom has been much more active in fighting recently than Jon has. But in case you don't agree, let's go through some of the key aspects, and I'll tell you why I think Tom has the advantage pretty much everywhere. First and foremost, if you look back at the dominant portion of Jon Jones's career, you'll notice that much of that was done over guys that were significantly smaller than him. And in a lot of those cases, they were nothing more than blown-up middleweights. We're talking guys like Lyoto Machida and Chael Sonnen and even Vitor Belfort. And yes, he did have many wins over guys that were true light heavyweights as well, but even in most of those cases, he was still at a significant size advantage over those guys. And when you look at some of the times that he fought guys who were as big or bigger than him, that's often where he really struggled the most. Now, the Gustafsson situation was a little bit unique because he really struggled with him the first time, but he made it look very easy the second time. But back when he fought Dominic Reyes, many people thought that Dominic won that fight, including Dana White, who is now obviously Jones's biggest advocate. And then in the case of Thiago Santos, that was a split decision win. So one of the judges obviously thought that he lost. So basically, outside of that quick win over Ciryl Gane, Jon only scraped by with wins in the two fights that he had before Ciryl Gane. So if we take all that into consideration and then we look at a guy like Tom Aspinall, who is bigger than Jon Jones, not only is he taller, but he's also naturally thicker and bigger. Now, Jon is freakishly strong when it comes to lifts and things like that, so it's possible that maybe he has more lift-style strength over Tom, but that weightlifting strength that Jon has never really translated into anything like knockout power. Whereas on the other hand, you have Tom, who literally is knocking everybody out. And the fact of the matter is, lifting style strength doesn't necessarily translate over to grappling strength. But even with all that said, Tom himself is exceptionally strong, and if you haven't seen the videos that he's done with Eddie Hall, you should go check those out. Now, one of the other areas where Jon Jones has struggled with opponents is when they are faster than him. If you go back and watch his fight with Dominic Reyes when Reyes was fresh in the first 3 rounds, Jon was really struggling to figure him out and to deal with the speed. And when we saw Jon at heavyweight, he did not look great, and he certainly didn't look fast. He was simply able to capitalize on a very significant weakness in Ciryl Gane's game, and that weakness is not even remotely present in Tom's game. So not only is Tom bigger than Jon, very close to him in strength, he's also going to be much faster. So Jon is going to have the issue of dealing with someone who is faster than him, much like he was at light heavyweight, but who also brings a power level that he hasn't really seen before, and at the same time doesn't really have any weaknesses that Jon will be able to exploit. But if you look past all these big items, there's also a lot of other factors that are in Tom's favor as well. First and foremost, he's several years younger than Jon, and his body has far less mileage on it than Jon's does. Tom hasn't taken nearly the damage that Jon has inside the cage, and far more important than that, Tom hasn't abused his body outside of fighting the way that Jon has. And in addition to youth and physical condition, Tom is also in that phase of his career where he's really hungry and has something to prove. So the bottom line with this whole situation is that this fight would favor Tom Aspinall in pretty much every aspect you can imagine. There is not one single aspect of this fight that I would confidently give to Jon Jones. And Jon is a very smart guy and a smart fighter, and he knows all of these things himself. And he knows that he would be at a significant disadvantage against Tom and that he would likely lose his unbeaten record if he was to fight him. But not only would he lose his unbeaten record, but he would also lose a significant part of his legacy that he's trying to keep intact here at the end of his career. Because if Tom was able to finish Jon quickly like he has so many other guys, and especially if he knocked him out or did something close, the entire conversation around Jon Jones would be changed forever, and Jon doesn't want that. I believe that Jon would much rather go out looking like a coward and not fighting Tom than he would want to risk actually having that loss and that video footage of him being knocked out or being beaten badly to exist and to be part of his record. So with all that said, yes, I think that Jon is very afraid of the idea of fighting Tom, and I will be absolutely shocked if he ever accepts that fight. But I much more believe that he's going to have his fight with Stipe and then walk away after that. And I do believe that if this fight was to ever take place, I think that Tom would run through Jones much like he has so many other guys. And one of the big reasons that I feel that way is that with Jon Jones, the one thing that Tom wouldn't have to worry about that he has had to worry about in so many of his other recent fights is the threat of a knockout. So if you put Tom Aspinall in a situation where he can strike freely without having to worry about the knockout danger himself, I think he would be even far more dangerous than we've ever seen him before. But those are my opinions. Let me know down in the comments, what do you think about this fight? Do you think it will ever happen? And do you agree with me that Tom would dominate this fight pretty much everywhere? As always, I'll look forward to hearing what you have to say. And once again, if you enjoyed the video, please make sure to give it a like. That really helps me out. And also, again, if you're not subscribed, please consider doing that as well. I appreciate all of you being here, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.